We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
Welcome to the Money Tree Show, where we bring you high-level multifamily investors as well as industry-leading experts. We tease out the skills they've acquired, the habits, and the mindset they've developed to make them ultra-successful in the real estate space. It is our goal to give you the knowledge you need to either start your multifamily journey or expand your current portfolio. Whether you're an active investor or looking for a passive investment to supplement your income, this is the podcast for you.
Welcome, folks. I'm your host, Matt Damon, here with my co-host, Anthony Vandermeer. Today, we have a really exciting topic. We're going to hone in on adaptive reuse and creative financing with Michael Sanchez. Michael's out of New Mexico, and he just finished up an incredible project that at the end in the show notes, we'll be sure to include his video that he made of this property. Talk about a transformation. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk about everything we can today, right? Anything we want to.
So excited to have you on. All right. So let's start out with what in the world is adaptive reuse? It sounds like some strange term that I've never heard of. Let's go through it.
Sure. So it's just like a real official term, but basically on the simplest explanation is a conversion, right? When you're converting something, either it be, we focus on office space, but you could take an office space, a bank, a school, a hotel, hospitals, and we prefer multifamily, so you could turn them into multifamily. Adaptive reuse, the term is used because you have something that's one use, right? Like if something is a considered office space, it's going to be labeled on their certificate of occupancy as office. And then we take it and turn it into multifamily, which would be residential. So we're adapting the use, what it was made for originally in its design, and taking it and turning it into something else.
Tell us about this latest project you were part of.
Sure. So that was just my wife and I. We purchased a 7,000 square foot office space in a very good area of Albuquerque, New Mexico, just like this up and coming area called Nob Hill. And so it was 7,000 square feet, and we took it and turned it into 7 2-bedroom, 2-bath luxury apartment homes. And so we took, we completely gutted a office space of what it was originally used for, took it down to the shell, and then bring in all the new infrastructure to make this thing just really high end in a really great location. But at the same time, kept some unique features to make us stand out, right? You have like offices have big storefront windows typically. So we kept those. The back of the office had warehouse with a bunch of garage doors. So we kept the garage doors in there, but updated them and turned them into where you could open your living room into your patio or your balcony. And so it was a really cool project to be a part of. And, it was cool to see it from start to finish. It came out like we wanted. So
I assume that you just opened a book on adaptive use, and that was, you just kind of, flipped a few pages and then bought an office building. How'd this all start?
Yeah. So the reason why my mind looks at things like this, it would start. I worked for a general contractor out of Los Alamos, New Mexico. And anybody that doesn't know New Mexico, we have the Los Alamos National Labs up there. It's a great segue, right? Oppenheimer just came out. It's where they built the nuclear bomb over there, and it's a huge nuclear facility over there, and it's very hard to work in, very, very complex. I worked in that field for about 12 years. And over there, they were not getting any new funding for building new buildings, only for taking buildings that they had and turning them into something else. But we're talking about buildings that were built in the 1920s during the World War II that were going up as fast as possible. And now they want to use them to house some of the most complex laboratory space for scientists, for the top scientists around the world. So we had to learn how to take it through zoning, get it rezoned, and then take it all the way into and turn it into something else. As the general contractor, they were placing all of that onto us. So it wasn't like they were designing it. It wasn't they were doing the zoning. They were giving us a project from start to finish. So I headed up that team, and I actually grew that team and tripled the revenue of that company by dominating that space. And so I did over $200 million of construction project management in Los Alamos National Labs. And that's why when I look at a building, I know what it's going to take it from one end to the other, right? And it's very complex, but compared to Los Alamos, where I was taking office space and turning it into like a high explosives critical area, taking it to multifamily is not that big of a deal.
Wow, yeah, that's dynamite there.
Oh,
Right. That was the dad joke of the of the podcast. There won't be any more of those. I remember watching the video of what you guys did when you mentioned like the garage doors, like turning your patio into like garage doors. You think like, what is that? How does that even work? But we've all been to like bars and restaurants, like go to like New York, like Anthony, your backyard, right? Go to Brooklyn. All these bars and restaurants have sweet garage doors that roll up and let in the sunshine during the day, and really high end spaces. You guys created some really incredible spaces, multifamily places. Can you tell us a little bit about? You certainly had some capital put into this thing. How did you finance it? How did you fund it? Did you refinance it? And if you haven't finished the refinance yet, how much do you expect to get back of your total investment?
Okay, sure. I'll run through the numbers. The purchase price for the 7,000 square feet we got for $490,000. Initially, we took that down with hard money. So what that allows us to do is, we had like 10% of that, so like $49,000 into it. So we put 10% down for the $490,000, and the money that we were using for the total loan, we were able to start putting money in day one. So we take it down hard money day one. We start demolition. We release our design team. They start doing all of the work on the design, and we start moving that along. 4 months into the project, we go after our actual loan. So that's where we came in, and the total amount of cash we had to put in was $375,000 against $1.7 million. So we purchased it for nearly $500K, and we had to put another $1.2 million in construction into it for a total of $1.7 million all in. And our cash basis for that was $375K that we had put into it. But by using the hard money route, right, we were able to get in day one and not use any of our money on that. And we started spending money on demolition, design teams, ordering materials, ordering everything. And then the bank that we used allowed us to use the money that we put into the project as our down payment. So we basically went as far as we could with our $375K without taking on the large debt, right, yet. So we didn't have those debt payments. And then the bank in turn allowed us to use that $375K that we had already placed into the project as the down payment for the full loan. So we were able to accelerate the schedule and bring it in 6 months quicker than we would have, and then also take 6 months of payments off of the debt that we acquired. So that was saving us money, moving the schedule. And then when we completed, we just got our appraisal back a couple weeks ago. We're worth $2.58 million. So we increased it about $800,000 in equity, and we get our secondary loan next week. We should close, or it's already Monday, right? So by the end of this week, we're supposed to close, and we'll pull out $340K of the $375 we put in.
100% Burr.
We're light 35, but by the end of the year with the cash flow, we'll get it back. So by the end of this year, we have it back.
I'm really disappointed over that 35K.
Yeah, me too.
Dude, that is amazing. Few questions for you. So did you have to go in hard money? And for those in the audience who don't know, hard money is similar to a private loan. You go to a private person and get the money at usually a little bit higher interest rate. But did you have to go in? Was the bank not willing to fund it as is? It's interesting you went hard money and then into bank. Can you just explain the reasoning behind that?
The bank would have probably taken it, but what we would have had to do on our offer is do a long due diligence period. So we would have had to put like 3 months on due diligence. This was a relatively small commercial space. They really wanted to get out of it, and it was more the seller's needs than anything. We wanted to make a strong offer. This deal popped up on Zillow. It had no business being on Zillow. They listed it wrong. And when it popped up and we saw it, we wanted to get it under contract that day. We wanted to finish it out of contract. So we closed in like 2.5 weeks. We put in an offer with our hard money. We're able to close immediately. Our offer looks better than anybody else. I think it got like 8 or 9 offers, but everybody else's was this long due diligence period and, a little bit under. And we just went in heavy. Like we could take this down. We could close in 2.5 weeks. So that was the biggest thing about that. But after we decided to do that, that's where we strategized and said, hey, we can make this work for us, where we could stretch out the project and not take the large loan out and start paying debt on it for as long as we could hold out. The bank would have allowed us to take the loan out, but we would have had to have the longer due diligence. So we would have been further into the planning process, like our designers released and more things like that. But after we did it and it worked out, we're going to be doing that a lot. That's going to be our strategy a lot going forward for these, because my company is a lot smaller, so we have to compete with big dogs. But by us being able to close quicker and get rid of all this due diligence period that everybody's doing, it makes ours look more attractive and then more likely to go with us for a lower price.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's a lot of risk with a long due diligence period, right? And you could tie up what you think is a good deal, a good buyer coming in to take your property off your hands, and all of a sudden you find out 4 or 5 months later that, hey, listen, they're not interested in moving forward, and they just burnt a ton of time for you. So I see that strategy working really well. I think that's a very smart play. Let me ask you a question, Michael. You said something early on in that that sparked a thought. You said this property was listed incorrectly. It was listed on Zillow. It's a commercial property. Commercial properties typically aren't listed on Zillow. Have you picked up a lot of projects that have been listed incorrectly over your years?
No. Over the years, no. I mean, they've had little things here and there that are wrong with them, like our single family stuff for sure. We've had where realtors didn't know what they were doing really, and we get it because of that, right? Like some of the realtors are listing these dilapidated homes like a regular house and asking for conventional funding, and they have no idea that they're never going to qualify. Things like that. We've gotten this one, I say incorrectly because they didn't list it as commercial. Even though it was on Zillow, there's a commercial section of Zillow, but they went with a residential realtor that didn't understand NOI. They didn't understand anything, right? They just were trying to do it as a comparative analysis for some buildings next door instead of, underwriting it and everything. So that's why I say that. But yeah, we usually look at those, but it's not the majority of ours, right? That's just luck.
Yeah, no, I know we wouldn't even say it's luck. It's that you guys had your feelers out there looking across the market every day, looking for opportunity, and that's a big piece of it. I last year alone, I made $400K on 2 deals that were listed incorrectly. One of them was a hoarder house that was listed as land, right? Because someone said, "Oh God, that house is so gross, no one would ever buy it." Well, 30K later. In 90 days, I made $75,000 in the house, right?
Nice.
Because it was listed as land, and we were able to come in and purchase it for above what land sells for, because it was worth more than land. There was improvements on it, needed some work. Yeah. And then another one was a tear down house that was listed as land that we were able to get in, because most people, they filter on a small category of things. But if you're looking at the market every day, there is opportunity out there constantly. And what Michael and Vanessa were doing was going through and making sure they're checking, building routine out of this, because they have a business. This is what they do. This is how they generate income. Looking for opportunities. Something popped up and said, "Holy cow, we have to take this down." How you take it down, that's how you differentiate yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Take it down with bridge loan.
But like you mentioned, it can't go understated. The amount of work that we do up front and the amount that we know our market inside and out. Everybody's saying, how are you guys going to buy this building in 3 weeks and know that you did all your due diligence, know all this? We know the numbers so cold. We knew we were going to gut this thing out. So people are saying, how are you not doing a due diligence? Well, we're bringing in all new HVAC, all new plumbing, all new electrical, new roof, new everything. We know we're not saving anything. I mean, I don't have to do that, but we're able to move quick enough only because of the years and years of work we've put in that knew we can do this, because we're not trying to take risks that we don't need to, right? We're only doing what we know we can do.
Yeah, you don't need to, bring an inspector in and all that, because you've been doing this business. You're right. You're gutting it. But even besides that, you know enough, or plenty to actually look for the big killers that are going to hurt you, right? The roof or some sort of major plumbing issue. And if I'm remembering correctly, which this is just an amazing thing that you guys did, I believe you also paid yourselves during this project with the bank proceeds. Is that correct?
That's correct. So since we are the construction company, we are the project management company, we're running the entire project, the bank allowed us to put a margin in there for us to be getting our salaries out as well. So it was it's the circular motion that we like to create in our company. That's when we know they're slam dunks. We purchased a project to create our own job, to pay ourselves. And by paying ourselves, we're creating our own long-term wealth by holding on to the property. So we definitely put a salary in there for ourselves that the bank paid us to do the project. So by paying for a building, we actually created our own jobs and we didn't have to do W-2s. which is necessary for us at this point, right? We're not big enough to where our real estate portfolio is paying us outright yet. We're building that up. So we do need W-2 income, and that's basically where it differentiates. The building itself is our long-term wealth, but the salary we paid ourselves is our W-2 for this particular moment.
That's
till
awesome.
we get there. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, because a lot of development firms do this. And I think it's smart that you bake that in and said, our time is valuable. Like we're not doing this for just sweat equity. Our time is valuable, and this is what our time costs. And we'll still keep 100% of the equity for the long haul. That's the way you're supposed to do it. I'm on a build to rent syndication, and the owners are paying themselves a salary while they build out. I mean, because it's a 2-year project, right? Then you should pay yourself. You're taking all the risk, but you also deserve a salary while you're doing it.
Absolutely. And it's a great setup. We didn't, before we started getting mentoring and education and everything, we didn't know we could structure things of this nature. We didn't know we could do stuff like that. So by the time we got, into this deal, we're offering the bank to pay ourselves 14% as markup for a general contractor. General contractor could charge up to 30%. So, the bank didn't have an issue with it. It actually secures their loan better. They know we're paying ourselves throughout the project. So it actually makes their loan more secure that we have revenue coming in outside of that for, the year that the project takes.
Yeah, so that old Tony Robbins line that I love, you don't lack resources, you lack resourcefuless. And I mean, that pins you guys to a T right there. Like 99% of the people out there will be like, well, I don't know. I don't know how to take this down. And you guys slowly ticked away at it between your experience and just the grit of getting it done. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So this project sounds awesome. What's the next steps for it? What are you guys doing? You got anything in the works? Any new projects? Or I know we're going to talk a little bit seller financing as well. So
Sure. We're always trying to do some single family stuff to keep the revenue coming in. We just finished another flip in Santa Fe and one under contract. So that one's great. That's going to be another triple digit flip for us, which was awesome. Very short time frame, short turnaround, simple project. So that was great. I have a bunch of offers in on single family, but on the adaptive reuse side, we have 3 different offers that we're working. One of them we've been working for like a year and a half on the same project, this building, right? That we don't know if we're going to get, but I want it real bad. That's a 71,000 square foot office space, 6-story building that we could turn into 60 units. It's in the heart of this area of Albuquerque that's just blowing up. I mean, there is new construction going everywhere. Our competition is like a hospital that wants to knock it down and rebuild, or another multifamily person that wants to knock it down and build. And they're all offering this, long due diligence periods. They want 9 months, 10 months, 14 months of due diligence before they're going to pull the trigger. And we're offering to joint venture with the seller to kind of bring this down. And so there's a lot of stuff we've been working there. There's a hotel in the same area that we did that we're looking at. We don't usually look at hotels too much, but this particular one is in such an amazing location. We like it. We've been working that one for about 4 months. And then one that I feel the best about is a 3-story office space in close to the university, right next to the university. That's going to be 24,000 square feet. We think we can get about 33 units out of it. And that's a 3-story building that we're trying to bring down right now. But these things are a lot of work, a lot of due diligence, a lot of construction estimating, a lot of looking at zoning books, code books, and everything to bring this down. So they're not like a typical underwriting where I can do it in a couple hours and know if it's going to work. The underwriting, the back of a napkin underwriting, is that first 30 minutes, and then from there, a month of just construction estimating and just redesigning it here in our office of, is this going to be 25 units, 30 units, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and redoing the pro forma over and over till we could find a place where it works, right? So
COVID was a major game changer. And so a lot of you listeners out there that want to do adaptive reuse, this is something to start thinking about. There's a lot of offices, a lot of companies that have shifted to work from home. Right? You don't need to be in the office as much. A lot of people said, you know what, we have 2, 3, 4 offices. Let's consolidate to 2 of them. right? Let's consolidate to one office, and we'll have our people come in less frequently. And as a result, it's created huge opportunities that Michael and his team are taking advantage of. And so this is something you may want to explore. Now, where Michael is differentiating himself is he has a lot of experience with zoning and understanding how to change a zoning, apartment zoning or building zoning from one category to another. Any tips that you can provide someone who's new to this?
Sure. So for anybody that's new and trying to do it, there's a few things on the zoning side. So there's two different things that you need to realize. Zoning is one step, and then change of use is another step. If you could find places in your county or municipality or wherever you're planning on your market is, if you could find places that are considered mixed use, every city calls them something different, but like our city, Albuquerque, calls it mixed use. These may have been office, but they're already zoned for multifamily. So I don't have to go through any zoning changes to get those approved. So I'm targeting areas for the upfront projects that are called mixed use, transitional, mixed use, high density. These are the areas in your city where you'll see a restaurant next to an office, next to apartments, next to this, next to that. It's where your city really wants there to be a diversification. So in that situation, it's less risky because your building is already approved for residential. Once you're through that, then you just start the next step, change of use. On change of use, you don't have to go through the zoning portion. You still have to go through a full design. You still have to follow all the code. There's still a whole bunch you have to learn, but you skip one whole portion. That's anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to get through rezoning, where you're able to just cross that out and you're able to start fresh on something. You do that. The second tip is to be extremely, extremely careful. Nobody understands the amount of construction costs that are these things. You typically are not able to reuse everything. When you walk into these buildings, you're like, oh my gosh, look, all this stuff is here. All I have to do is build this out. That is not the case. You always have to upgrade electrical or bring in new water service because there's not enough capacity, change the sewer, add fire suppression, add fire alarm. There's just so much cost that are unanticipated that I would tell everybody to be extremely careful. It's actually one of the reasons why we had to start do a lot of creative structuring, creative financing, because none of these deals were making sense because of the construction costs.
And you have that construction background. So I feel like, almost as, me and you are Pace Morby guys now, or you have been, I just got into it, but the whole Avatar series where, one of the big things is work for someone else, right? You were working for yourself, but I'd almost think if you're going to get into this kind of world, you'd have to work for either be a contractor or work for a contractor. I think that's where kind of the rubber meets the road, right? Like, because me and Matt, we do, Matt obviously knows construction very well. On my end, I renovate apartments. It's really, I renovate the inside, maybe do some roofs. It's a much simpler process. So, would you recommend that getting started, you work for someone else in this arena?
I would actually, if you could latch on to not so much construction as a developer or like an architect that does these type of projects, kind of the engineering and the zoning and understanding that the code is so much more important. So a lot of times if you could get on with a company that has all of them, right? They're the designer, the developer, the contractor, that's even better because they'll be the ones that really understand that. But if you could only pick one, I would say maybe try to get with the architect or engineering firm that understands this stuff, because they'll be the ones that show you, hey, this is why you can't just go start putting up walls and let people live there,
Water capacity, just talking about water capacity alone. I know we were building a project and they gave me the spec sheet. The town gave me the spec sheet that said, if you're connecting a single family house, it's $10,000. If you're connecting, and it goes through an entire table, and the bottom of the table was the one that blew me away. If you're connecting 40 apartments or homes to this, it's $1 million, right? To interconnect with our facility, because they got to bring water, a 6-inch water pipe as opposed to a 2-inch water pipe from a mile down there to your building, right? And so it gives you a sense of like, these are some of the costs that, to Michael's point, you truly have to understand this stuff, because if you don't, you can get yourself in big trouble.
It's crazy. 7 units on that office space we just did, $41,000 expansion fee. There was already water to the building. There was already a meter. We were just going from inch to 2-inch. For that they made us put 2-inch. They didn't need that much, but they made us put a 2-inch. $41,000. It doesn't cover any of the costs. It doesn't cover any of the cost of construction to do it. And our water bill is higher than anybody else because we have a 2-inch, right? So even it affects our NOI and our building net worth afterwards. It's crazy. I mean, and so you got to be aware of these things for sure.
Well, let's talk about creative financing. I mean, with the market changing, with more office space and other types of commercial real estate being available to be changed over into different uses, we're certainly seeing a change in the returns that or what someone can sell a building for. And it's not just isolated to commercial, it's also residential real estate. And so one thing that's coming back over and over again, we're seeing more of, we haven't seen in a long time because the market's been so hot, is creative financing. I'm not a creative financing expert. You guys know a lot more about it than me, but let's start by defining what is creative financing.
I would say at its simplest core, creative financing or creative structuring is just really focusing on the seller's needs and wants and tailoring a deal to meet those needs and wants. The more that I've learned about creative financing, creative structure, you can do anything you want, basically. This is a contract writing class more than it is a real estate class. And in contracts, you could set terms any which way direction that you want to. And so whenever you look at a real estate deal, you really need to just know, what is the seller selling for? What are they doing with that money? What are they trying to accomplish? And once you figure that out, you're not so much looking at the price of the building or the price that you're paying them. You're looking at, what do they want to accomplish with this transaction, with this deal, and how can we meet those needs? And sometimes it is price, right? Sometimes they're just like, this building is worth $5 million because my dad told me it's worth $5 million 6 years ago, and he told me when he died that I better not sell it for less than $5 million, and that's it. That's their biggest thing, right? You say, okay, I can, everybody's been offering you $3 million, but I can offer you $5 million if you give me terms, right? If you give me terms, if you give me 0% interest, I can maybe come up to that. If you give me a 40-year, 50-year note, maybe I could hit your, like, if that's all that's important to you is that number, we could find a way. And if that's truly all that's important, you'll like it because we'll hit your number. But then usually you find out that that's not the only thing that's important to them, right? Then you just kind of start restructuring. But for us, I would say in the adaptive reuse space, it's become so necessary. So you had mentioned it before, like COVID wiped out office space. It's the main sector that we're looking in. The numbers that we're seeing nationwide, on a nationwide average, it's something like 70% vacancy in downtown areas right now across the country. So you go to the larger cities, San Francisco, New York, anywhere, they've been obliterated by COVID and they have not rebounded in the office space sector, not even close. But they have no money coming in. They're on 5 to 10 year balloons that are going to hit at any point. They cannot refinance out. The banks don't want them back, right? Even if they do call the balloon, what are they going to do with them? With the empty office space? But then the construction to convert it into something usable is too expensive for you to buy it for anything. So that's where we had to start learning creative finance out of a necessity for our business model, because now we're approaching sellers that are hurting. They have a liability. They're still paying taxes, maintenance, trying to keep their building afloat. They can't refinance it. They have a balloon coming up, but they don't have the expertise or knowledge or anything to turn it into something more usable. They don't even know if that's possible. They don't know if they could finance that. So that's where even we're offering like joint venture deals with the seller, right? So that came out of our education in creative finance, that we went to the bank and said, if this seller gives us his building as the down payment of our construction loan, would you accept that? And the bank said, absolutely. If you could bring the seller, so instead of going and offering the seller to buy his building, we offer him a 50% or a 40%, whatever it is, whatever that deal is. We offer him a percentage in our joint venture of an asset when we're complete, a multifamily. And in that situation, they stop the bleeding. They're not paying out any more money. They don't put any new money of their own. But at the same time, I'm not putting any money because we're using their building as down payment. And then we go after that. Any other way that we try to do it wouldn't work, right? We try to raise money to buy this building. We have to syndicate or get investors. There is no refinance portion on this that's ever going to pay our investors the cash on cash return that they want or bring their money back. So this building is basically dead unless we do something like this creative finance. And these buildings have been sitting there forever. I mean, and so who wouldn't take that deal if you have somebody credible on their side? Obviously, like myself, that we have a packet that shows these are all the projects we've done. So we're just starting to tread those waters, but we have offers in, like I said, the one we've been working on for 1.5 years, that's just been building rapport, trying to build a business relationship so we could do something creative like this.
The JV model you're describing is is mildly not. It is mind blowing. It makes perfect sense for you, for the owner. I mean, I would think, and it's funny because it just hit me. So the first apartment I ever bought, it was a condo. You know, saved up all my wedding money, bought this little 500 square foot condo in a luxury building. The building was purchased from a gentleman who owned a parking garage, and they just happened to put up 32 stories on top of this parking garage. He didn't sell the parking garage. He said, you know what, give me a little cut, give me the top floor penthouse. I mean, this guy literally, he made way more money off this one deal than he ever would from selling the parking garage. I mean, the JV model into a current owner, it just, that makes perfect sense. And you did mention something with trust. Like that's where, when you're just buying a building from someone, getting financing, it's a more simpler process. You really do have to, take the time and get to know the person and maybe even get to know their family, right? Like it does take time because it's a partnership. Once you get into that partnership, that's amazing. I mean,
yeah, for our side too, it's so important, right? Like if we find the perfect building on the perfect street with the perfect everything, somebody agrees these terms and they're a horrible person, we're probably not going to go into that deal from our side, right? I mean, it would be a horrible partnership. It'd be horrible for our business. So we're not going to do that. So, I mean, it has to be all these cards aligning. So it's a weird thing because it's not just underwriting it, right? Yeah, all these things have to fall into place for one of these deals to work. But if I could get into a deal for no money, he gets into it for no more money out of his, and then we build, a $20 million facility of 60 doors by the time it's done, $30 million worth. We're going to take that. We're going to run with it, right? We're going to work our asses off for it.
And you know what? The other piece of it too, that's really, I think, probably very rewarding too, is these buildings are not owned by one person. They're typically owned by maybe a dozen, maybe 100 people, depending on the ownership structure of it, maybe more. And so these people, their net worth on this building is zero, right? It's at this point, like the banks don't want it because it's not bringing in any income. And you can't sell it to anyone because you'd sell it at a giant loss, and you can't even afford to pay off your own loan. So you're in this like trapped scenario. I had lunch earlier this year with a longtime syndicator, probably 40 years in the business syndicating, and he owns a lot of Class A real estate in Connecticut. And all of his banks switched to interest only for their notes because they're suffering so badly that they can't afford to pay principal. And they're riding this wave out together. And it's owned by dozens and dozens and dozens of people. You can't give it away, can't sell it, can't do anything with it. So by coming in and partnering, doing a joint venture with someone, yes, you're taking a haircut on your money probably in terms of what you thought that building was worth, but certainly you're creating value where there was none. And that is, it's a huge win for Michael, but it's also a big win for these families that own these buildings. And so that's got to be a rewarding place to be, free up some cash from them. Maybe they could refinance out, get their piece out, either sell it, for whatever they could sell it for, and salvage some of their investment.
I mean, there's so many ways, and you never know until you just learn their backstory, learn what issues they're having, learn everything about them, learn what they want for their kids, learn what they want for themselves, learn what else they have in their portfolio. Every deal would be completely structured differently, just depending on what they are trying to accomplish or what they didn't even know they wanted to accomplish. That's part of what we do, right? Is just talk them through it and take them through the series of questions that helps us zone in on what they actually want. And then from there, like I said, you can put anything into these contracts. I mean, of course, you have to be solid at the bank. You have to know your underwriting. You have to know your numbers and pro forma and everything that will work, of course. But for what your terms are, 30-year mortgage is just a number. We can make it, a 37.25 year mortgage if we wanted to. We could do 0% interest. We could do 50%. I mean, it's whatever makes the deal work, but makes both sides win-win. And usually they come out ahead and you come out ahead if you're doing it right? Like if you're doing creative structuring correctly, both sides are winning. But there has to be trust on some of these. But then other ones where they want to get out, maybe you do seller financing, right, where they don't necessarily want to be involved in the project, but there's some offices where they're offering seller financing, but they're taking an office that's completely vacant. They're saying they're going to give it to somebody else and hope that they rent it out. Because if they don't rent it out, guess what? Their seller finance contract goes out the window. They're not going to be making payments if they can't fill it themselves. So do they have a better shot of going with the person that's trying to keep it office and do a seller finance contract for 30 years, or go with me? There's so many, it just depends, but creative structuring is awesome. There's so many benefits to it, right? Even if we joint venture with somebody and do this whole deal for no money in, we still get all of the depreciation benefits. Imagine $0 out of your pocket, take over a building, you create, you end up spending $21 million in construction on this project, one of them that I'm thinking of, and we get to do accelerated depreciation, bonus depreciation off of that whole thing. And if they're our partner, now they're getting more accelerated depreciation for them. We're getting that as well, and nobody's more money into this thing, right? And then at some point in the future, when interest rates come down, we refinance, everybody's happy or whatever. But either way, we're cash flowing, we're creating value, we're solving problems. That's the biggest thing. The bigger the problem, the bigger value that we could bring, the better reward we should be getting if we keep learning and positioning ourselves correctly.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier, which I love, is, I'll give you your price if you give me my terms. And that is, that's really a lot of times you look at seller financing like it's all, it's all for us, right? But I look at, me and Matt did a deal where we paid the guy $1.8 million, right? And he got all that cash in one shot. He owned $200K on the mortgage. And I actually spoke to his accountant because I was, speaking to different people in his organization, and the accountant said, oh man, he got crushed on that one. Like, if he actually just did seller financing with us, he would have got paid out in small chunks, would have been much better for him. The more I look at seller financing, that's going to be like my exit strategy in 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I'm just going to, I obviously keep some for the kids. They deserve some, but for the, or actually I'll just give the kids the bank note, right? That's
exactly.
They want more.
Give them the seller finance bank note. We're the same thought process. When we get to the point where we're selling, seller finance all day. Right. It's going to be, that's exactly how we'll exit all of our properties. And so it's really cool. And you made a good point about the accountant, right? Like, you ended up talking to their accountant and they give you that. In a lot of these deals, we have to put them in touch with an accountant or with a lawyer or with an insurance person, whatever it may be, just to help them explain the benefits that they're even getting, right? Like, that's, and typically whenever you're going into a real estate deal, it's not like you're not telling them, hey, let my CPA talk to your CPA because we're trying to save you. No, in creative structuring, it's all of that. We want their accountant on board with our CPA because we're selling them all this tax benefits, tax savings, and we're using the professionals to help us sell this and structure it correctly, because it's not really a sale. It's just uncovering more and more and more details until everybody could come to a win-win situation. And so you need all those experts in those bigger deals as well.
One thing that's challenging with seller financing, creative financing, is, I think it's very complex, and your average person has a hard time understanding it. What sort of resources do you have, or where can you point people to, where if they're going to do, or if they're considering doing seller financing, what can they look to better understand the pros and cons of it?
I think, a huge resource, which I think is getting more and more traction every day, is Pace Morby and his YouTube channel. If you go on there and you type in seller finance, or if somebody's offering you some other form of creative structuring, if you just type it in YouTube, you can find it. And that one is hard. Sometimes he's very big personality. He's starting to get famous and everything. Maybe that's not somebody you want to listen to. There's another gentleman by the name of Matthew Bell, who is a mortgage broker. He's an investor himself. He's been in mortgages forever. And his strategies and his abilities to explain things is really well. So he has a lot of video information out there to sellers. If they're doing seller finance and maybe they have a FHA loan, or they have a VA loan, or they have all these things that make it more complex, he has videos out there to show you exactly how to do it. And he breaks it down into the terms that the bank will understand. He knows the bank's inside and out. And a lot of people say, oh, that's not possible, this is not possible. But he knows these things better. And he's able to remove everything where it comes back down to the numbers. And he shows the bank, hey, these are the numbers. This is how we make it work. And so there's a lot of ways to do things. And in this market, I think it's very important. If you're a seller right now trying to sell your home and you're in a bad position because you just bought it a couple years ago, and you're either going to have to write a check for your home, or you can't sell it because, interest rates are too high, this is an excellent option for you, right? This is a way that you could do that. And there's a lot of real estate agents, not to knock real estate agents, we love them, but there's a lot of them that might be advising them, oh no, you can't do real estate contract because you still owe this much on your mortgage, or you can't do it because this and this. That is absolutely not true. You can structure it if you get some advice, and you could do it and you could sell your house. So it helps buyers and it helps sellers. So, a lot of it is education. We do that all day. We talk to people and just educate all day, because there's ways to get things done, especially in the rough market.
Yeah. And I believe Pace Morby's book is Creative Cash, right? I just read that. That one was great.
I think it's called Wealth Without Cash. Creative Cash is Bill Ham, I think.
Bill Ham, that's right. Yeah. Bill Ham is Creative Cash. That's a good one. I read it like a year ago.
Yeah, that one's great.
Morby's Wealth Without Cash.
Yeah,
I'd actually go Creative Cash and then Wealth Without Cash. Do those
Absolutely.
two. And then I agree. I think the YouTube channel, listen, I love it. I've actually learned a tremendous amount from his free resources. I mean, I just joined up, as you know, Michael, just joined up for his mentorship program. Just to get more information on it, but I think even the YouTube channel by itself is great.
Yeah, and
it never hurts to have more tools in your tool belt, right? So if you can understand different strategies better that you can leverage and take advantage of, I think that's really smart as an investor.
Heck yeah.
I think typically it's more just learning, but I would argue in this environment it's necessary. At 7% interest rates, 8% interest rates that are coming up. There's not ways to buy these properties without this, you need these creative terms to be able to pull this stuff off, or else, it's just a lot of deals are off the table if you don't know it. So I would say it's very much a necessity in this current market that you have to know this stuff.
Absolutely. Not to mention, maybe it's just me. I don't think so. It is fun. There's something about, structuring a creative deal, and you're like, hey, you're going to get 10 G's a month for the next, 5. I've even structured out deals where I'm showing the current owner, like, you're making just as much as you were before, and you don't have to take a phone call. A lot of these guys are mom and pop owners. Like, you're done. Like, it's now my house. Oh man, but you'll make the same money for the next, 5 to 10 years. So I think it's just fun, right?
It's fun. It's helpful. Even like, it seems more helpful when we started in this and we started trying to do like in real estate. And we're trying to start at the bottom of the totem pole, right? Like wholesaling things, and you're starting to talk to people in foreclosures and horrible situations, and you're trying to give them the lowest dollar amount that you can so that the investors can get involved. It wasn't fun. It wasn't our business model. It was not our cup of tea, because it didn't feel like we were helping anybody. It just felt horrible. With creative financing, we have circled completely back around, because now we're actually able to help these people. Like, with us knowing terms now, I could actually go and help somebody get out of a horrible situation, help them get back on their feet, improve their credit, get us a house, and do well with it. And now it's a completely different conversation. So now it's just like talking to people that are in bad situations and giving them every bit of advice I possibly can, whether we're buying it or not. Now we're just trying to help people out. And sometimes deals happen and sometimes deals don't. But knowing this stuff gives everybody a lot more power and a lot more ability to get out of these bad situations. So it's fun. It's helpful. I'm one of those ones that it's extremely fun. I love this stuff. So
good. Heck yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to actually go back and listen to my own podcast like 3 times, because there was so many nuggets in this one. Like, that was amazing, Michael. We appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Please, we'll put in the show notes, but please let our investors know how they can reach out to you, or our listeners, how they can reach out to you, and anything you might need from them.
Sure. The best way to reach out to us is that my company name is MTI, and that's in New Mexico. So our website is www.mtinm.com. And then you could reach me on my email at michael@mtinm.com. We're always wanting to network, learn more, right? If anybody's listening to this and they're in the adaptive reuse space, there's few and far between of us. So we'd love to network, learn from each other. And then for investors, we're always offering opportunities. On our private money, we're usually giving back 15%, 2% origination fees. We always have some short-term loans going, and we always also have some long-term loans. And then as we get in these bigger partners, we're going to be bigger projects. We're going to be looking for some joint venture partners as well. So
fantastic, Michael. And be sure to check out, in the show notes is the link to their latest adaptive reuse project there in downtown Santa Fe. Amazing video.
Downtown Albuquerque.
Sorry. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to The Money Tree Show. We hope to inspire you to achieve financial freedom. To see a sample real estate deal, head over to www.themoneytreeshow.com.